Hello, everyone. Welcome to Business School 101. Decades of rapid economic development have corresponded with China's emergence as a global force in international sports. Nowhere has this trend been more on display than at the Olympic Games, which offer participating countries an opportunity to boost their global image by showcasing their athletic prowess. Since the end of the Cold War, China has been gradually improving its performance and ranking at the Summer Olympic Games. In fact, China has placed second in total medals after the US since 2008. When Western media began to analyze China's success at the Olympics, many attributed it to what is known as the Tear Factory or a secret training camp. Although some elements of these reports were true, ample evidence has shown that the majority of the images of abuse that appeared in the media were actually taken decades ago and came from a reporter who went to random training centers and private classes rather than real training schools. Additionally, most of the alleged dark truths and secret interviews were written by reporters who completely ignored the institutional context of China. As a business scholar who focuses on cross-cultural comparisons and therefore has some knowledge about China's sports teams, I believe that it's important to help people understand China's Olympic success in a more comprehensive way. Therefore, in this video, I will analyze China's Olympic achievements from three major perspectives: political, economic, and cultural. For each dimension, I will discuss both its benefits and drawbacks. First, political perspective. The central planned top-down political system. Following in the footsteps of the Soviet Union, China maintains a state-driven approach to international sporting competitions, which is designed to boost athletic success through government policies and programs. For instance, the 2001 through 2010 Olympic glory-winning program guidelines were put forward by China's General Administration of Sport in 2002, which called for China to place among the top 3 medal winners at the 2008 Olympics. Under these guidelines, top-level officials control and manage everything with the goal to achieve Olympic success. This central planned top-down political system has both advantages and limitations. Advantage number 1, strategic focus. The Chinese government understands that even though winning both men's football and the women's 10-meter platform diving only counts as one gold on the medal table, they require significantly different levels of talent reserves and resource commitments. To avoid the misuse of resources, to increase funding efficiency, and to maximize China's Olympic medal prospects, Chinese officials have categorized Olympic disciplines into two major categories: primarily physical-based sports, which include subcategories of endurance, explosive power, and speed, and primarily skill-based sports, which include subcategories of accuracy, artistic, combat, net, and non-net. Researchers studying China's Olympic medal strategy have found that it is underpinned by the 5-word principle, which is small, fast, women, water, and agile. Until the 2012 London Olympics, China won 3/4 of the gold medals and more than 2/3 of the total medals in just 6 sports: badminton, diving, gymnastics, shooting, table tennis, and weightlifting. In addition to the 5-word principle, China has also placed emphasis on increasing its medal hauls. The nation looks to capitalize on opportunities by which it could quickly take the global lead in medal wins. For example, when trampoline was formally added as an Olympic sport in 2000, the Chinese immediately made sure to put funding and resources toward training because they believed that the level of competition was low compared to other well-established games. This strategy actually worked pretty well. Although trampoline is neither a traditional nor a very popular sport in China, China's national trampoline team won 2 gold and 1 bronze medals in Beijing in 2008. At the London Olympics, they won 1 gold, 1 silver, and 2 bronze medals as well. In 2021, they won 1 gold and 2 silver medals in Tokyo. Advantage number 2, strong financial support. In China, the vast majority of the funds directed to Olympic sports are still derived from the government's budget. Because of the centralized top-down decision structure, once China's top officials decide to pour resources into certain sporting events or disciplines, those projects are usually backed by sustainable financial support. Since 2000, the Chinese government has gradually increased its investment on both Olympic infrastructure and athlete training. According to Pravda, a Russian news outlet, to prepare for the 2008 Beijing Summer Olympics, the Chinese government spent around $2 billion on the construction and reconstruction of sports facilities. Besides state-of-the-art training facilities, Chinese Olympic athletes also get world-class training and support teams with the government's strong financial backing. In recent years, we have seen that more and more national Chinese sports teams and individual players are trained by top-level foreign coaches. Here are a few examples. China's best sprinter, Su Bingtian, who became the first Asian man in 89 years to reach the Olympic 100-meter finals at the Tokyo Olympics, was trained by Randall Huntington, the former coach of the long jump world record holder from the U.S. Similarly, China's gold medalist in the women's épée individual bout, Sun Yi-wen, was coached by Hugues Aubry, a retired French fencer who won the gold medal in team épée at the 2004 Summer Olympics in Athens. Despite all of these advantages, the central planned, top-down political system also suffers from a few serious limitations. Limitation number 1. Leaving pressure on the bottom. The centralized top-down structure leaves huge pressure on the bottom of the system, which includes lower-level governmental officials, athletes, and coaches. Each year, the General Administration of Sport allocates a financial budget to different disciplines and regions based on their performance in the previous year. Additionally, the upper-level officials also use these criteria to determine the promotion of lower-level officials. For example, if you are a city-level director of the table tennis department and there are no national or world champions from your city, then you might never get a chance to be promoted to a higher-level position. Under this mechanism, all of the governmental officials put pressure on their subordinates, and those subordinates eventually will pass those pressures on to the athletes and their coaches. Limitation number 2. Corruption. Corruption has always been a social issue in China. As we just learned, due to the top-down centralized decision-making process, the upper-level government officials have the absolute right to determine the allocation of government budgets and lower-level officers' promotions. In order to gain more financial support or to get promoted, lower-level officials often bribe their supervisor for a favorable return. In recent years, under the pressure of President Xi Jinping's anti-corruption movement, there has been an increasing number of sports officials sentenced to prison for corruption. Those officials crossed all different levels, areas, and disciplines. One of the most pronounced examples of this is Xiao Qian, the former deputy director of the General Administration of Sport, which is considered one of the highest-ranking government jobs in Chinese sports. In 2016, he was sentenced to 10 years in prison for multiple corruption cases. Second, economic perspective. An attractive but skewed reward system. The Chinese government, both at the central and local level, provides generous rewards to athletes who win gold medals. Generally, an Olympic gold medalist can receive 3 major types of reward. First, a cash prize. The cash prize for gold medalists is great. Chinese Olympic champions are suggested to be given $200,000 to $1 million for winning a gold medal. In recent years, however, that figure has started to vary in different disciplines and areas. Please keep in mind that according to China's Prime Minister Li Keqiang's 2020 governmental report, China still has 600 million people with a monthly income of only 1,000 yuan. This means that 40% of the population of China lives off of roughly $140 a month. Because many Chinese athletes come from poor families who work in factories or on farms, this type of offer motivates them to train even harder. Second, an education. For most Chinese athletes, their lives revolve around sports. Because of their dedication to training, they have no time or energy to receive formal educations. So the government gives Olympic gold medalists a second chance to earn their education at some of the top universities in China. Third, a guaranteed lifetime government job upon retirement. This is another strong incentive for athletes to perform well. Due to the years of intensive training, most Olympic gold medalists will experience many types of injuries throughout their life. Additionally, since they typically lack other skills that are required to make a living, A government job provides them a lifetime of financial security. While the reward for winning a gold medal is significant, the vast majority of these athletes are not going to become Olympic gold medalists. Unfortunately, over a decade of doing nothing but training may leave most of them unprepared for the real world. In China, there are about 6,000 professional athletes who retire every year, and around 40% of them experience difficulties finding jobs. This is because the cradle-to-grave system that used to take care of them no longer exists. Many athletes who don't make the grade find themselves out on the street without the education that they would have gotten if they had attended a regular school. The Los Angeles Times spoke with a former national weightlifting champion who took a job scrubbing backs at a public bathhouse for 10 cents per person because it was the only job that she could get. Her education stopped when she was in the 3rd grade, and she had no marketable skills. Another weightlifter who won a gold medal at the Asian Games could only get a job as a doorman at a sports school. Former runner Ai Dongmei, who placed 6th in the Boston Marathon, sold her medals and now sells clothes and popcorn on the streets of Beijing with her husband, also a former athlete, for just a few dollars a day. Just as a Chinese track and field coach once said, when these athletes retire, they can't do anything. They have no skills. Local sports commissions sometimes provide them jobs, but in the end, many become factory workers. Third, cultural perspective, the long-term oriented and collectivistic value system. According to Dutch social psychologist Gerard Hofstede's cultural framework, Chinese culture is featured with long-term orientation and collectivism. This means that compared to people from other countries, Chinese people are more willing to sacrifice immediate gratifications for long-term achievements, and they might also readily sacrifice their own happiness or even health for the greater good of the country. Additionally, Chinese athletes often relate their performance not only to their individual success, but also to the reputation of their family, village, city, province, or even the whole country. These cultural traits provide both an advantage and a limitation to Chinese athletes. The advantage: extremely hard and persistent training. Guided by long-term oriented and collectivist value systems, the Chinese believe that hard work pays off and practice makes perfect. By following an extended athletic development model with repetition of technique and skill, Chinese athletes refine every movement until it is optimized. This is another possible reason why they are so successful in sports like diving, gymnastics, table tennis, and even weightlifting. The limitation: a lack of consideration for athletes' own interests. Chinese long-term oriented and collectivistic value systems are also integral to how they recruit athletes. After getting their parents' approval, promising children as young as 6 years old are trained at China's state-run sports academies. Children are selected based on favorable physical attributes. For example, Chinese NBA basketball player Yao Ming was put into basketball when he was young because he was tall. Similarly, the 400-meter individual medley Olympic gold medalist Yi Shi-wen was trained in swimming because her hands and feet were disproportionately large compared to her height. Although this approach does produce a better chance of yielding world-class athletes, it obviously does not fully consider every child's personal interests. I think it's important to mention that regardless of nationality and discipline of sport, all athletes must go through this extremely hard training and sacrifice many things that ordinary people can't even imagine in order to stand on the Olympic podium. As Chinese trampoline Olympic medalist Gao Lei once said, "My biggest sacrifice for the Olympics is the happiness of my childhood." Similarly, when Jess Graba, the coach of American gymnast and Olympic gold medalist Suni Lee, was asked to describe Lee's journey to Olympic success, she said, "Lee sacrificed her teenage years to train for the Olympics, and she went through a lot of depression." People are sometimes biased when it comes to the Olympics. That is to say that when an athlete from someone's home country trains hard, sacrifices their childhood, and endures everything that is expected of an Olympic champion, they believe it's a heroic journey that shows what the human spirit is all about. But when a foreign country's athletes do the same, people describe it as excessive or even inhuman. Therefore, I believe that every athlete who performs honorably in the Olympics deserves our respect. After learning a bit about the previously discussed advantages and limitations, I believe that you already have a better understanding of China's typical Olympic performance. As we near the end of this video, I think it's worth noting that although there are still many downsides to China's Olympic training and reward systems, 3 positive changes have been found among Chinese athletes in recent Olympic Games. First, in the past, we could see that a large portion of Chinese athletes came from poor families and rural areas. Therefore, one of the most common reasons for them to go to training school was because their parents could not afford for them to receive a formal education. However, in recent years, an increasing number of Chinese Olympic athletes have come from middle class and even rich families, which is partially due to China's growing economy. These athletes join sports mainly because of personal interests rather than financial concerns. This change is particularly discernible in events like equestrian, golf, and swimming. Second, Chinese athletes have made some breakthroughs in events in which they are normally weak, such as track and field. For example, in the Tokyo Olympics, Gong Li Zhao and Liu Shiying won gold medals in women's shot put and javelin, respectively. More surprisingly, China finished 4th in men's 4x100 meters relay, which has been their best performance in the event to date. Lastly, but most importantly, Chinese athletes and the media have become more rational regarding Olympic results. Currently, it appears that Chinese Olympic teams may be shifting their priorities from focusing on increasing medal counts to also cultivating likable personalities. Despite underperforming for the 2016 Rio Olympics, Chinese athletes seemed more inclined to express themselves. For example, Chinese swimmer Fu Huanhui garnered international praise for speaking openly about how menstruation may have affected her performance. That same year, Chinese athlete Chen Kai publicly proposed to his girlfriend, He Zi, after she received a silver medal in diving. Essentially, more and more Chinese people are starting to believe that winning a high number of gold medals is not the only way to prove the nation's strength. Instead, the athletes' efforts and characters should also be applauded. So, what do you think about the Olympic performances of Chinese athletes? Please leave your thoughts in a comment below. If you enjoyed this video, then please be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.